we're off and running on the Krueger Show tonight. Hope everybody's having a great August the 26th, 8:49 West Coast, 11:49 East Coast. Sorry for being a few minutes late. I guess I could start every show that way. As my wife would say, Larry Late Krueger. Anyway, we're having a good time, though, and we've got John Lund in the house from KMBR. We're going to talk a little bit.
My fault.
No, it's not. But Johnny's in the house. We're going to talk Cutdown Day. And, of course, we're brought to you by Pig at a Pick, all the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until they run out. Go get some briskets. Say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. And this live stream is also sponsored by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue. If you're down in the Pacific Grove on the Monterey Peninsula, call Anthony Catania. He's a good friend at 831-521-5264. And the stream tonight is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. I'm loving using Better. Everyone who signs up using the code NINERS, NINERS, and automatically enters into a drawing to win a Brock Purdy jersey in your size. This will be a jersey that we will purchase for you after you win it. So all you got to do is download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code NINERS and get your first deposit matched up to $250 and to enter into the contest. Thanks to Better for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Johnny Lund in the house, Cutdown Day. Today was a weird day at practice, and it's always a weird day because this is a weird profession. And these guys signed up for it, so nobody's crying a river for the players. They know the deal when they get into it. Some of these guys are going to make the team and make millions of dollars. And other of these guys are going to get cut, and they're going to have to uproot their families and live out of hotels and suitcases and kind of chase the dream in a different city in America. And they're going to have to change everything about the way they live and where they live and that kind of thing. So it's a dramatic day. And there's guys in the bubble. And there's guys that know that they're like, man, I need one big hit to open some eyes. And so there was some fisticuffs and there was some short tempers out there. And Jalen Graham was getting after it. I think he's feeling the pressure. Ronnie Bell's getting it after it a little bit. He's feeling the pressure. So we thought we'd have John Lund on from the Niner pregame show and KMBR, the flagship station, to help us break down some of the big decisions that Lynch and Shanahan have on their plate over the next 24 hours. John, good to see you, man. And awesome to be back with you on KMBR in the pregame and postgame window. Love being on with you and Greg and on all the shows, and just thrilled to be back at the Leader covering the Niners from the flagship angle, and thrilled to have you on the Krug Show.
Bro, it's like riding a bike. It's been so fun having you back, and we missed you. And it's just so cool to have your insight. We know each other so well. For those who don't know, and I've told the story a million times, we'll tell it if there's just one person listening that doesn't know it. We've known each other. I came to the Bay in like early 2011, and I've known you, literally lived across the street. We know each other's kids, and we've known each other. And then we started working together at KMBR, and we did the pregame. And so, I mean, we've done hours and hours and hours of this stuff and talked a ton of it off the air. So it's just always a really good thrill. And to have you back on the air, you've done such a great job with this show and everything else, but to have you back on the air at KMBR is awesome. To have you doing a nightly show 6 to 7, and if the Giants are on for the short period that they've got left, not that we need to go down that road, but then you're going to be not only will you be doing it here on YouTube, then you'll be doing it on the Leader again every night during drive time, and it's just going to be incredible. And more, we know how great you are, so there's going to be more and more opportunities. And here you've built this amazing thing, so. And then talking Niners with you is second to none. I mean, this is what you and I have. How many times did you and I sit in a booth from Harbaugh to Tom Sula to Chip Kelly going, oh, my God, it's another 100-yard rusher, to what Kyle has built here. And, I mean, Super Bowls together in New Orleans and Vegas. And, I mean, we've done this a ton. So it's great to bring it on the air, whether it's on terrestrial stuff at KMBR or whether it's on the Krug Show here. It's just we've been doing it for years, you and I, and it's fun.
Oh, dude, seriously. And it's very, very familiar, and it's very cool to be back. And it's just, I'm loving it. And the fact that the radio station promotes the YouTube channel and the YouTube channel promotes the radio station, and the whole thing has just been a win-win for me. And I love it. And we're having a lot of fun. So let's get into it, because Shanahan was so like, John, he didn't want to answer any questions today. Somebody asked about, I think it was Barrows asked about one question. He's like, well, I really don't want to get into any specifics. And this is just, every coach / GM is trying to put together the best 53, and there's all kinds of trades and cuts and negotiation. And what are you guys thinking here? And what are you thinking there? And the guy that gets cut in this camp is wanted in 5 other camps, and some teams make trades to jump the line in the waiver process. So, what do why don't we start right at the top of the roster with the quarterbacks? I mean, Brock Purdy has been fantastic this summer. He's clearly getting better. What's unknown is who's QB2. Dobbs, I think, has really been awesome in the games. I think maybe Allen's outplayed him a little bit in the practices. They're very similar in a lot of ways. I didn't know that the Niners could win any games with either of them, but I'm starting to feel like they might be able to win a few games with either of them. And then there's Tanner Mordecai, who had an amazing throw the other night where he's running to his left and he flips it around and throws it to Ronnie Bell, who's on the move, and hit him in stride. And then he had that amazing throw to Trent Taylor in the at the end there for the Hail Mary. So he's all 4 of the Niner quarterbacks have looked good this summer. Who's going to be QB2? Who's going to be QB3? And did the rule change? That was the other thing that happened today that I don't know if people took note of. There's a rule change that now you have to pull that third quarterback off your active roster, not off the practice squad. Maybe you could explain that a little bit.
First of all, as far as the quarterbacks, here's how I thought it was going to happen, but now I think this is the way it's going to happen. So like you said, Brock's better and better and better, and you've seen him up close. And for those who haven't, he's in great physical condition. I'm sick and tired of, I hear this nationally all the time now. The new narrative with Brock is like, people think he has a Chad Pennington arm. It's like, he doesn't have a Chad Pennington arm. It's a strong arm. He is athletic. We saw him run again, just like we did in the Detroit game. He can get out of the pocket and move. They just don't necessarily want him to do that. He put a juke move on a roll right against the Raiders. Like that was
beautiful.
Athlete. People screwed up and not taking him. This whole thing of, well, that's why he was taken in the 7th round. Like, I am so sick of that national narrative. They screwed up just like they did with Brady. Like, I know we didn't have Twitter and all the social media, but the reality of it is Brock is good. Brock is an athlete. Brock is in better physical condition. Brock, when he made the scramble, doesn't move out to the right or left anymore. A lot of times moves right up into that pocket, despite the fact that he's 6 foot tall. You know all these things because you scouted, so I'm making it obvious for you. But so Brock is better. Now, as far as the backup, which is really the most interesting part, is if Brock goes down, their season's over. But who can win them 2 or 3 key games? Maybe if Brock has a ankle sprain or something. I'm with you. I think Dobbs is the gamer. Brandon Allen, Kyle likes better. So I think probably, but they're not going to cut either of them. That's the thing is I thought, well, they're going to keep Dobbs because he'll get picked up and they're going to try to slip Brandon Allen through. I think they're going to keep them both. I think they're going to keep the 3 quarterbacks. I don't know what's going to happen with Mordecai, but you turned me on to him early, and the guy has a great arm. He may be a practice squatter. I don't know if they would keep 4 in that situation, but because of a few years ago, Kyle might be freaked out and might do it. But they're not going to cut Dobbs or Allen because I don't think they can get either through. Now, Papa is definitely afraid that the Bengals are going to take Allen back and everything, but he's been gone a couple of years. So I think of the 2, if they did cut one, I think you have to keep Dobbs, and Allen could probably make it through. But from what I'm hearing now, they're going to keep all 3 and they're not going to take the chance.
Yeah. They quarterbacks are so important. So, I mean, that's the one spot I would try to keep my inventory as much as possible. Now, would you make Dobbs the 2 or would you make Dobbs the 3? I mean, if you're not putting either through waivers, then it's just a matter of who do you have more belief in? It seemed he started the camp by giving Allen kind of he kind of took the lead over Dobbs to start the camp.
I'm gonna have you answer the question very simply by this. Kyle. Kyle likes, I've called a play. I'm a super genius. I want you to execute the play. Well, the guy who does that is Brandon Allen. The guy who is Trey Lance-ish, and I don't mean 5 interceptions in a game. Oh my God, is he bad? And he wears the number 5, and that's Josh Dobbs. So Dobbs, I like the way that he plays, and he is smart, and he doesn't just pre-read like the other old number 5, the new number 19 in Dallas. So I trust Josh Dobbs as well, and he makes plays, and I think he would be the better number 2. But Kyle Shanahan likes a quarterback who's like Brock Purdy, which is, here's the play I've called. Please execute the play I've called and don't leave the pocket. So that's more Brandon Allen. So I like Josh Dobbs. I don't know where you stand on this, but I think that Kyle Shanahan likes Brandon Allen because that's the kind of quarterback that he likes.
You know, it's like one of those things. Like we know good quarterback play when we see it, and we know bad quarterback play when we see it. And when we see good quarterback play, we're like, yeah, we like that. That's what we want. And when we see bad quarterback play, we're like, God, that guy stinks. Well, I saw great quarterback play from Dobbs at the beginning of last year. He beat Dallas, and then he played well in that game against the 49ers at Levi's. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this guy is athletic. He's smart. He's coming into his own. He looks good. And then I made this mistake, and I watched Bears Vikings in like week 13 on like a Thursday night.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've ever seen a worse quarterback than the Dobbs that I saw that night. So I don't know. I think Brandon Allen is Kyle's kind of cup of tea. Even though I think Dobbs has a little bit more movement ability and a little bit more off script ability, my guess is that Kyle would have Allen in front of Dobbs. That'd be my guess.
I think that's it. And I think the fans would probably rather have Dobbs, but keep in mind too, that there's a reason he went from, I don't even know if I can keep it straight, from like, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Minnesota, the Cardinals, he went,
he's on 10 teams. He's had 10 NFL stops for Dobbs. I mean, that's the thing. He's 3-11
harder and all those kind of things, but there is something that teams go, yeah, but then like you said, there's that game where he'll just fall on his face, so I think I think Allen would be the number 2 guy, but I really don't think either of those guys are going to be cut because of what we saw a couple of years ago and in the way that Kyle values the position.
I want to share the screen here. I want to play you this little soundbite and tell me what you think of this. And, forget the source, because as soon as you hear the source, you're immediately going to be like, catfish, Manti Te'o. Forget the source. Manti Te'o went on the NFL Network, and he had this to say about the 49ers. And it's kind of an interesting point. Let's hear what he has to say, and then we will rip up Manti Te'o. No, I'm just checking.
There's a look that you see when somebody truly believes they're better than you. And I think for the past 5 to 10 years, we've got so accustomed to the San Francisco 49ers walking around not only the NFC West, but the NFL in general as these big bullies. You watch Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel come out of the locker room with that bump box, and you watch them get into that scuffle in the pregame, and you watch their dominant defense and their run game. We got so accustomed to that. When I flipped on the TV and watched their past 2 preseason games when their starters played, and I just see an emotionally drained team. They've been to the NFC Championship 4 in the past 5 years. They've been to the Super Bowl twice, and they lost that Super Bowl to the same team. It reminds me of when I was with the Saints in 2017. We had the Minneapolis Miracle. We had to suffer that. That is just emotionally draining. Then the very next year, we play the Rams in the NFC Championship, and we have the no-call PI. We go through that. I can only imagine for the San Francisco 49ers what that feels like. And then I put on, we just saw the Seattle Seahawks preseason game, and you see that party that's in there.
Yeah.
The first drive, Geno Smith goes down there, hits Jackson Smith and Jigba, hits DK Metcalf, and that's without Kenneth Walker. That's without Tyler Lockett. And they're out there having a blast. Mike Robb's on there. Michael Bennett's on the broadcast. It's just a party. It's not the same, when I watch the San Francisco 49ers.
So, okay, first of all, I mean, the source, whatever. We can sit there, Manti Te'o. We all know the catfish thing, and it's like hard to separate. But I kind of think that he's onto something here. Now, a lot of people are like, hey, man, Kyle's not even calling plays, and there's all these, Aiyuk's not there, and Trent's not there. But the Niners have been through a lot. They've been through some a lot of extra playoff games. They've been to a Super Bowl now, and they lost it in an overtime situation. Very painful. And then 2 high-profile holdouts and a shortened off season. And Kyle I don't know if it's John, if it's just because once you've been to the Super Bowl, it's or the NBA Finals in basketball, that you can't get fired up for like October or November basketball, and you maybe can't get fired up for training camp when you've played all these meaningful games in January and February. And I do understand that, but there is a vibe around the Niners this summer, and I've talked to Tim Ryan on the sidelines at some of the practices about it. talked to some of the other media people down here covering the team. There is a different vibe. I don't know if it's a been there, done that, too cool for school. We're not going to get fired up about July because we played for real in February, or if they're fatigued by the failure or the holdouts. Well, John, you're around it, and you're sit with Greg every day, and he's got a great sense of it. What's the vibe in your mind like this summer?
Well, and I'm not going to disrespect Manti Te'o because he played the game. He's been around guys. I mean, that thing about his whole catfish thing is so weird. And he looks more jacked up in that than he ever did when he was playing.
Seriously.
So kind of
Guy looks pretty good. He's pretty jacked.
But he played the game, so I'll respect that part of it. But you can't make those assumptions, at least to me, in preseason. I just don't think that. And then for whatever team, any sport you're talking about, leadership is the key to everything. You and I have been going in that locker room for a long time, and you've been going down to every single camp. Well, Trent's not there yet. But let's look at some of the leadership on this team. First of all, Brock Purdy belies his years. He's a very good leader. He's very fired up. He gives you a Tom Brady kind of a vibe. And even though he hasn't won it, he just walks around like he's going to win it. George Kittle is fired up. Trent Williams is fired up. Debo is as tough as they come. Jawan Jennings is a leader. Christian McCaffrey is a leader. Kyle Juszczyk is a leader. Nick Bosa is a leader. I'm going down the line. Fred Warner is a leader. Ward is a leader. If they didn't have that type of guy in that locker room, now look, having said all those things, I don't know how long it's going to last. And I know this, I make the comp all the time that when Seattle won and almost 2 championships, they did it because they could keep all those defenders and all those great players around. And Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick. The minute Russell Wilson started getting paid, all of a sudden Cliff Avrill's not there and Michael Bennett's not there and Cam Chancellor is not there. And they're missing some guys on the offensive line that you didn't think were very important. Max Unger gets traded. All of a sudden, Seattle was just not as dominant. They dominated the NFC for a long time and should have won 2, but at least they got 1. The pressure from the 49ers is within, and you're down there every single day. And while I'll stop short of saying that it's desperation, it is urgent. There is an urgency around the 49ers that you can feel when you go down there. They want to win so badly. So I would replace what he said in terms of what did he say? Some sort of a letdown or anything like that. It's not really that. What it is they don't want to be that Harbaugh group. As great as you and I and all the 49ers fans think of Navarro Bowman and Willis and Staley and all those guys that were on that team, Alex Smith and, Kaepernick's a different deal, but Frank Gore, we love all those guys, man. Vernon Davis, that offensive line with Mike Upati and all that kind of stuff. Those guys were awesome. They didn't win it. So the teams that won it, and we talk to Dennis Brown all the time, the multiple team guys are here, the Montanas and Youngs and all those guys. And then you got the team, but Harbaugh's teams are kind of here. And if this team doesn't win it, I think it's even more disappointing, and it might be down here. You have to win one of these things. And it's almost like remember the Atlanta Braves, they go to all the World Series. They ended up getting 1, but they should have
14 division titles, right. 1 World Series.
A's fans can relate to it. They should have won in 88. They didn't. They did win in they did win in 89, and then they didn't win in 90 against the Reds. They should have won all 3 of those. So but they did get 1. So the urgency that you feel when you go down to 49ers camp or you go down every single Sunday, as you and I do, there is an urgency. There is a pressure that is around this team that if they could have gotten that first one in Miami, I think they would have eased and relaxed, and I think they would have probably won 3. Kyle has said it. But here's where I disagree with Manti Te'o. This team has come back from a loss in the NFC Championship game in LA, a loss in Philadelphia, came back, went to 2 Super Bowls, lost a huge one in Miami. I remember sitting there doing postgame till 4 a.m. It felt the exact same way in Las Vegas last year with the same damn confetti. It was just the seats were aqua in Miami and they were black in Las Vegas last year, just sitting there. Look, as a broadcaster, you try to be a professional. It's hard when the team that you live and die with, and I'm not saying that the fans don't, but man, you get to know these guys and you really want them to win because they're good guys. And these are a good group of guys. It's not that I think that they feel that. It's just there's a pressure around this team. And I don't think it's a regular season pressure, Krug, but I do think that once Brock gets paid, it's all going to change because everybody's happy. Get Aiyuk. Okay, if they do, can they get Demo? Can they get Ward? Can they, there's all these guys. Hufanga, I don't think is going to get re-signed by the 49ers. They're going to start losing pieces that are really important. It's a top-heavy team, but this is really the opportunity. Kittle's 30 years old and making a ton of money. These tough decisions that they're making right now on Aiyuk, or this tough decision on Trent Williams, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Every single offseason from this point forward until they have to reset this 49ers team and pay off the credit card bill at some point, This is it. And maybe they have a year, maybe they have 2, maybe they have 3. I don't agree with Teo's premise of that there's some kind of feeling or letdown around them. How can you tell that in preseason? This team has a ton of leaders. I think they're going to be fine, but certainly the clock is ticking on this team. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I mean, first of all, the 49ers have about almost 25% of the top 30 players in the league.
Yeah.
So they have the highest percentage of the best players in the league. And by the way, none of those guys have played in the preseason.
Right.
Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Mooney Ward, Hufanga. These guys aren't out there.
Yeah.
Not to mention Aiyuk, Trent Williams. And when you take the most athletic players off the field,
you can't make that statement based on
in preseason.
Okay, Brock played 3/5 of the offensive line played, and Debo played for a quarter. And you're going to tell me that you can glean that? Again, he played, I get it, but you can glean that from afar in 2 preseason games in which Brock played, 25 total snaps? I mean, I'm not buying that.
No. And Brock Brock to me has looked really, really good. Now I'm looking at footwork and that kind of thing. But I mean, he does throw a lot of picks in practice, but a lot of times they're tip balls. And Brock Purdy hardly ever finishes a play with the ball in his hands. He's always letting it go. So he's going to take chances, and he's going to test his boundaries, and he's going to try to squeeze it into tight windows. And people look at that and go, he throws picks. I think he's kind of proven at this point that he takes pretty good care of the football.
Yeah.
Today was day 20 of summer practices. Ricky Pearsall returned to practice today. Was still in the blue jersey. He's been in the blue jersey most of the summer, which is a non-contact thing for those who aren't at practice. That just means don't touch this guy. He's coming off an injury. He's got a shoulder sublation, which is kind of a step down from a dislocation. But he's also had a recurring situation in the shoulder, which is it's frustrating to hear because shoulder injuries a lot of times are recurring and that can be chronic and it can be career ending. What do you think about Pearsall? Are you expecting a big year from him? Some people think he's going to be IR'd and he's going to have no year. Who's wide receiver 6 for the Niners? If let's just say, Pearsall and Cowing are 4 and 5.
First of all, I know we're going to get to the rookie class at some point, but I know Pearsall hasn't done what maybe we think he's going to do eventually, but the rest of the class has been absolutely great. As far as Pearsall goes, you just have to be patient, and that's not a fan thing, but that's what the 49ers have to be. You can't rush him back. If there's any problems with him, the one thing that we know about the 49ers that as a fan is absolutely great is they are really good at getting healthy at the right time. I don't know how they do that, but early in the season, you're going to see there's going to be some injuries. If Aiyuk comes back, that maybe that's number 11 in the jersey. That's not number 11. He's not ready to play yet. It's going to take him a month or 6 weeks. Krug, again, you scouted, you tell me it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. Trent Williams, I get it. He wouldn't want to be practicing right now anyway, but there's shape and there's football shape. So he could be working out all he wants in Oklahoma at his gym. It's going to take him 2 or 3 weeks or a month. He's not going to be the same guy that first month. So they could get off to a slow start. They could lose to the Jets in that first game. They could lose a couple of games along the way here. And that's the way it goes. But by week 10 or 12 or something, all of a sudden, man, Kyle does what Kyle does. He wins in December. He wins in January. They get healthy. They crank it up. Then what would make you believe that they're going to rush Ricky Pearsall back? They're just not going to. So as much as things he can do, but if you've got Debo, you've got Jennings, you've got Cowing who has showed. Conley's underrated even more so than his special teams ability. I think they're going to be fine. And then, another thing that somebody told me when I was in Las Vegas over the weekend is don't count out the fact, because we're sitting there going, oh my God, they've got all these receivers and if Brandon Aiyuk's not there. When you have the ability that Debo has and that Juszczyk has and that Kittle has and that I already mentioned, McCaffrey, they can move those guys all around. So you don't necessarily need a 3 wide receiver set. What you can have is you can move McCaffrey. You don't think McCaffrey's been moving into the slot a little bit with this whole situation? Move Jennings outside, put McCaffrey in the slot, move these guys in motion. So they're not necessarily going to say, okay, well, we've got to play 3 receivers without Aiyuk, who's the 3rd receiver. Well, it might be 2 wide receivers and 2 tight ends. Logan Thomas came back. It might be Kittle, and they might keep McCaffrey on the field and move him in motion. There's going to be all these different things that Kyle's doing. And that's the greatness of Kyle. And this, Krueger, down there. they're not necessarily just going to throw a third wide receiver in there. I like Cowing, but we all know we've seen preseason superstars before. Can he do it in the regular season? They're going to lean on Conley a little bit more if Aiyuk's either not ready or not signed. He's a veteran, just like a lot of coaches, managers. Bob Melvin's this way. They lean on veterans. So a lot of people are thinking, well, geez, with Pearsall out, is it going to be Cowing? It's going to be who he trusts. And Cowing is gaining that trust, and Pearsall hasn't been around in the pads long enough to get the trust yet. So they're going to go to veterans, and they're going to go to guys in different packages that aren't necessarily wide receivers to confuse the defense who are versatile.
One of the guys one of the highlights that was just awesome. I was looking, and I didn't see this in the game. I only saw this when I saw the highlights. Look at this play. This is Malik Collins inside.
Oh, dude,
and I'm sure you saw
cool.
this. Let me see if I can roll this back so you can see this. He throws one guy away like tissue paper, throws the other guy away, and then sticks the running back. Look at this play. Goodbye. Hello.
Dude, those are grown-ass men that are like 320 pounds, and he's taking
Look
one
at this
arm.
guy.
Watch the
Look at that guy. He threw away the center like he was nothing, man.
Me and you go to camp every year, and we talk to these guys up close. And so Armstead, I remember this, his second year, because his first year was kind of a washout. And you and I saw him go up to the podium. We were standing next to each other. We're like, this dude has to be able to play. He's 6'7". He's built like an Adonis, a god, right? And Malik Collins comes into our broadcast one day, and dude, he's built like a fire hydrant. He can barely fit in the door. I'm not kidding you. He's maybe 6'1", and
315, right? 318 or something like that.
I don't know how you could move him. Like, he was standing right in front of me, and I'm not tall or anything, but he's not that much taller than me. And I'm thinking, how could you possibly move him? I mean, and he's supposed to be the pass rush guy. So Jordan Elliott's supposed to be the run guy. We saw that in the Cleveland game last year. This front has a chance. Now, if they, obviously you and I can get to the defensive ends, and they're thin there, but inside with the potential rotation that they have, they get everybody back healthy. They might be tough to run on, man. They might have that swag back against the run.
Yeah, this guy just looks amazing.
The guard in the center, he killed him.
I'm talking to Tim Ryan a little bit. He really likes Jordan Elliott quite a bit too, who's got great feet at about 315 pounds. What do you think, John? I mean, let's talk about the D-line for a second. I mean, first of all, is Collins going to be an upgrade over Armstead? And then I think it's, the Niners defensive line depth, because of the Hargrave move and all the moves they kind of made subsequent to that move, kind of has disappeared. I mean, the Amenahues, the Ebukams, and all these guys, Ridgeway, they've lost some significant bodies. But what do you think? I mean, Collins and Elliott come in, 3 new faces on the front with Floyd. How confident are you in this Niner defensive line?
I would have liked it a lot more if, obviously, we didn't have a couple of injuries that we'll get to, but between Collins, Hargrave, Givens, who's, I know you've always been a fan, and Jordan Elliott, I think that rotation, and it would have been nice if Davis didn't get hurt, but he's going to be out for a while. But the thing is that they're better if you look at Eric Armstead from a year ago, because Armstead just couldn't stay healthy. And I know we're going to get into some other positions. I think they're going to make a trade, and I think they're going to shore up the outside, because today you were down there. Robert Beal was running across from Nick Bosa. That's not going to get it done. He's going to get doubled every single time. And I think what's going to happen here, first of all, to answer your question, I think it's good, but they've got to get, and it sounds like Floyd is going to be back before Utor Gross Matos is going to be back. Matos might be a little bit more time, but so as long as they can get Leonard Floyd in. At the time, the Floyd injury looked nasty. I thought he was done. Like, when I saw it,
Collins bounced on his knee. Yeah, I was like, oh my God,
there goes that
really
guy.
Bad.
And so I think they're going to be okay. Let me combo this up with something, because we're seeing, I'll give you Seattle for an example. Seattle upgraded their defensive line so much so that they traded a former second-round pick, Darrell Taylor, to Chicago. Then Owusu gets hurt, and now they're like, oh my God, we need another guy. And then they went out and got Trevis Gibson from Chicago. So they basically are from Jacksonville. He used to be Chicago. He's from Jacksonville. So they went and got an edge guy because they had an injury. So there's been a ton of trades already for this preseason. And look, there's going to be a boatload of guys out on the street, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to cut in line. Seattle might have been able to get Gibson, whatever the case may be, but one injury, and they sent out an edge guy, then they got to bring one back in. There's a guy, we go over to running backs, And what do the Niners hate? We just mentioned Armstead. What do the Niners hate? One of the reasons Trey was drafted and they got sick of Jimmy. They hate injuries. Well, who in the backfield is always hurt despite his talent? Elijah Mitchell. Yep. And clearly Jordan Mason is number 2. Garendo showed enough. He can probably be 3. Patrick Taylor's not bad. Schrader might be a guy that gets on the practice squad. And Chris McCaffrey, hell, he never gets hurt and never comes out of the game anyway. So you've got a guy in Elijah Mitchell who's going into the last year of his contract. I give him a ton of credit. He's played with broken ribs and all these different things. But if I'm Dallas, who needs a running back, they have Ezekiel Elliott as their starter. My God, man.
Seriously, what is Dallas thinking?
They don't have anybody.
Deuce Vaughn and an old Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, Niners have like 5 running backs that are better than Dallas's guys.
A ton of sense. And I like Elijah Mitchell, but he's hurt too much. I'm sure the Niners are frustrated. And there's a handful of teams beyond Dallas that needs it. Well, if I'm the Niners, it's the same thing with Aiyuk. I don't want draft picks. I want either a veteran safety because you're going to have a rookie and a second-year guy with Aaron Rodgers on week 1. I don't love that idea. I think they need, obviously, depth at defensive end or edge. I think there's a couple of positions that they could shore up if Ayuk's not back or you're looking for a receiver. Obviously, Elijah Mitchell's not going to solve all those things, but whatever they decide, and right now you and I are talking about the defensive line, nothing against Robert Beal. He's not having anybody shaking in their boots opposite Nick Bosa week 1. So can they find an edge guy or can they find something that they need? Because Elijah Mitchell's sitting there like a sore thumb. He's always hurt. I like the guy a lot, but there's a handful of teams that need running backs. It's not hard, as you well know, to pick up somebody's system. And I mean, Christian McCaffrey was playing the week he got brought over against Kansas City. In the second week he played, all he did was run for a touchdown, catch a touchdown, and throw a touchdown. I mean, a running back can incorporate himself onto a team rather quickly. So if Elijah Mitchell went to a team right now and had 2 weeks from tonight is the opener with the 49ers and the Jets, Monday Night Football. So he'd have, 12, 13 days to incorporate himself. He could play in week number 1 for another team, 10 or 12 plays or even more. So I honestly, I expect Elijah Mitchell probably with 99% probability of getting traded so that the 49ers can fill a possible hole, either at edge, a veteran safety, potentially a receiver, something like that. I think that Elijah Mitchell can get one of those type of players back.
Do you go one running back shy or do you give his spot to somebody else? I was very impressed with Patrick Taylor in this last game, and Garendo, I think, has made the team based on his return ability. Do you give it to Schrader? Because Schrader, I like Schrader. I just don't know if I like Schrader as a starter. But if you could trade Elijah for a pick, there's also going to be a bunch of other running backs cut. I mean, I was watching that Jets game the other night, and they got.
What I'm saying is, I think you beat teams to the punch. So all these guys are going to get released.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody's got to like him. Elijah Mitchell. He had 963 yards this first year. He's a nice back, and he would be an upgrade over a number of teams' first-team running back or depth at the position. You always need that. So, somebody's going to have access to one of those positions that I just talked about. And I think that the Niners shopping Elijah Mitchell makes a ton of sense because they've got depth. JP's number 2. Don't you agree?
Yeah, definitely number 2.
So now Elijah Mitchell at best going into the last year of his contract is injury prone and he's your third back. And for some team who could run the zone concept, which you can't deny, Elijah puts his foot in the ground and gets up the field. That's why he's hurt all the time. So if a team runs a zone, which most of the teams in the NFL do, some sort of zone scheme, he's going to fit, and he can fit pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, and then he would. I mean, and yet Shanahan loves him, so I don't know if they'll trade him. But
they're going to go, dude. He's never available.
I know. I mean, they should trade him. They absolutely should, especially now because Schrader's a perfect replacement.
Hey, let me ask you, what do you think they most need if they put Elijah out there and said, hey, they could potentially need an edge here. I think, man, that safety thing. I like Malik Mustafa, but Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown and Aaron Rodgers comes in against 2 rookie safeties. Receiver.
Tracy Walker's been good in camp the last week.
What about
I think he makes it with Hufanga out. I think Tracy Walker gets that. The ex-Lion gets the spot.
Going on pup, right? I mean, that's Hufanga. We're hearing Hufanga on pup.
Yeah, Hufanga's going to probably go on pup, and that means Hufanga's going to miss, some time. I mean, as far as exactly how much time he's going to miss, a lot of people say he'll miss the first 4 games of the season. The Niners are not going to try to rush him back. They want to work him back slowly. So they have George Odom.
Where would you go if you could make a move and say, okay, we got Elijah Mitchell here? What would you target?
Defensive end. I mean, because right now you've got Bosa, And then you have question marks because Floyd, I think, is a older player that needs to be spotted on passing downs.
Yep.
Yatir Gross-Matos is always been kind of a nice size speed guy that hasn't come into his own. He did play his best football last year, but he's not like a star. And then what do you got? You got Beal, who's really raw and barely could get on the field at Georgia. And then you lost Drake Jackson. And after that, you got Alex Barrett and practice squad guys, the guy from Maryland, who had a sack the other night. But I mean, they don't have enough guys there now. So like when the Saints rolled in and they had Granderson and the former Cal D lineman, and they got a bunch of defensive ends, Isaiah Foskey, who they drafted in the second round out of Notre Dame last year. I think Foskey, there's a very good chance he gets cut. And if he gets cut, I could see the 49ers pouncing on him. You just saw the Seahawks trade Darrell Taylor. That was another guy that I was kind of hoping would shake free, but he got traded to the Bears. The Bears have another guy named Dominique Robinson who played wide receiver, who's a really athletic 6'5", 6'6", 260-pound defensive end, kind of raw, but a real good pass rusher. And he could be pushed off the roster now with Darrell Taylor going to Chicago. So I think the teams you keep an eye on are Chicago, Dallas. Today, Dallas, I don't know if you saw the cuts today, but Dallas today cut the San Jose State defensive end, Viliami Fehoko.
Yeah, he was really good when he was here.
San Jose State.
Sacks, didn't he? Like 17.5 or something?
Yeah. So, I mean, he'd be interesting. I mean, Randy Gregory was a no-show with the Buccaneers. He was AWOL there. I don't know if he doesn't want to play football anymore. But he's another guy. Chris Garrett.
Me today, and you know this just as much as I do because you're down there. They might pick him up just because they're that desperate. They were not big fans of his.
Of Gregory?
Yeah, they were not big fans of his by the end. He's just weird. He's a quirky guy. He signed with Tampa in the offseason and never showed up. He's a weird dude. He's a weird dude.
There's also talk that Cincinnati may cut Joseph Osai, the former Texas Longhorn who had that terrible penalty against Mahomes out of bounds a couple of years ago in the playoffs. But Osai is a good defensive end. So, I mean, I think there's a bunch of guys out there that will get cut, that the Niners will look at all those defensive ends. Now, a couple of the other ones I think are real tough. Who would you rather have for cornerback 6? I think they're going to keep 6 corners. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they put Darrell Luter on the podium today kind of tells me he's going to be on the team.
They love him.
Yeah, they wouldn't. And he's the prototype physically. But Sam Womack today was awesome. And I thought Womack had his best game. Now, I know he got burned for the touchdown where he kind of stopped on the play and let the guy go in for the touchdown. But I thought Womack's coverage this summer has been good. I think I would go with Womack over Rock Ya-Sin. I just think that Womack is for sure going to get claimed because he's a younger guy and he hasn't been around the league. And Rock Ya-Sin has been on 3 or 4 teams. He's been cut a few times. There's been a number of teams that could have had him this summer and just didn't want him. So I think I would give that cornerback 6 job to Womack over Rock Ya-Sin.
Yeah, it's that this is part of the puzzle in the equation is you may keep a guy, but knowing that the guy that you're cutting might be a better player, but you can get him back. And so what tends to happen is that a guy like Womack, who flashed 2 years ago against Green Bay, had those 2 interceptions, and everybody thought he was going to be the next big thing. He's a couple of years into a contract, and so if they put Womack through, he probably is cleared. If they put Rock Ya-Sin through, he probably makes it through, and then you can hit him back on the practice squad now. That big practice squad that is up to 17. You can put vets on it and everything ever since the pandemic. So, it might be a situation where they keep Womack and they really want to keep Rock Ya-Sin too, because it's nice to have those veterans who you can just plug in there. Hey, we might not need you for a couple of games, but all of a sudden we have an injury and we can plug you right in there and feel pretty good about it. They've got so much talent. You've talked about it throughout this whole process. They've got so much talent. They're going to cut somebody that is an NFL player. I thought what was trending to happen was obviously you've got your guys set. Lenore and Ward are going to start, but 70% of the time you're in the nickel. So are you going to go with the rookie out of Florida State in the, is he going to move on the inside, or is it going to be Yadam staying outside and then you're going to move Lenore inside? And I thought it was going to be Renardo Green, but now I'm hearing it's going to be Yadam. So they're going to move Yadam to the outside, and Green's going to be the 4th corner, and he can play inside, he can play outside. So like you said, I think it comes down to Sin is a veteran guy. Womack's a young guy. You already want to give up on your 5th round pick from 22. I think that's what it could come down to is, Rocky Sin played almost that whole first game, and he actually played quite well.
Yeah,
and
he's played really well in practice, pretty consistently.
Yeah. Womack did not have a good game against the Raiders. He had a couple other miscues as well. But if I'm the Niners, I don't want to cut my 5th round pick from 22. You've done so well in those mid rounds. I'd rather keep the young guy with a little bit of upside. And then Darrell Luter Jr.'s in. They love
he's fantastic.
Jr. And, it was a horrible throw. Was that Carter Bradley? That throw into the end zone that I thought at that point, it was early in the 4th quarter, that was going to win the game and ended up being tied. But, they're up 24.
They were college teammates at South Alabama. You said he didn't even realize it.
But Luter Jr. made a play. And he was up at the podium today, and he seems like a confident guy. Had the injury last year. They really like him. So he's a guy that future-wise, Darrell Luter Jr., I think you're going to see a lot from because they really like him.
Oh, he's awesome. He's an incredible kid, too. He's married. He's got a kid. He's very mature. He's a little nervous as far as a public speaker. But, I mean, this guy played press man almost exclusively at South Alabama. So a lot of rookies come into the league and they don't have a lot of press man experience. This guy only played press man. He played press man when they played zone on the other side. So I asked him today, what do you need to improve on? And he's like, well, just little nuances to my man-to-man coverage. He says you can always improve playing man-to-man, and he likes the improvements he's made this summer. How about this one? Tatum Bethune, Jalen Graham, or Curtis Robinson, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. I mean, Flanagan-Fowles has got a role on special teams. Robinson has really come of age this summer.
Yep.
But then Graham is just a freak of nature as far as speed and aggressiveness. I love watching Graham. And Bethune is the leading tackler on the team. He's had, he had 10 tackles, 8 tackles, 6 I mean, the guy's got like 25 tackles in 3 preseason games. He just shows up at the ball. I kind of wonder if Bethune is a liability in pass coverage, but against the run, I mean, he's the truth. I mean, this guy is absolutely is gonna step up and take on guards and take on backs, and he's gonna help you stop the run.
They're so good at identifying certain positions, and linebacker is just one. You were on Greenlaw before he came out, ran a 4.73. And he's turned out to be great. Fred Warner was a safety in college, and the 49ers identified what he could do. So they're just great at this. The big thing to me is, Devondre Campbell's had an up and down career. He's been a Pro Bowl guy, and then he's kind of gotten lost against the 49ers. He's got to fill in for Dre Greenlaw. That's a big one to me. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, to me, showed in the Super Bowl that he's a very limited player. And it's not fair to him, but they put him on after the injury to Greenlaw. And this is what, I mean, of the many things that we could talk about, this helped lose the game too. Kelsey in the second half, he was screaming.
Did whatever he wanted.
Yeah, he was screaming at Andy Reid early in the game because they were shutting him down, and then they put Flanagan-Fowles on him, and he's supposed to be athletic. And look, I'm not saying Kelsey's easy to cover, but you're an athletic linebacker. You're certainly not a thumper, and he just couldn't do it. So he's only a special teams player. Well, like you said, Curtis Robinson can do that. D. Winters, I don't know what's going on with the ankle, but that could be a major problem as well. We haven't talked about that injury. Jalen Graham. They've got a ton of depth in the linebackers. To me, the biggest question is, can Campbell give you any type of, is that going to be the guy from a couple years ago who was really, really good, or is that going to be the guy who wasn't so good last year and was banged up? It's huge to lose Greenlaw early in the season, and I don't think we're making enough of it because what's he going to miss the first half of the season? Probably he's going to miss the first 8 games. That's massive.
Maybe more, right? Yeah. I mean, he got hurt in February. It was an Achilles.
Massive. And what's going on? Winter's ankle. I mean, I know they said it was going to be an MRI, and they haven't said anything about it. But to me, I know we're talking about Gross Matos, and we're talking about Floyd. I think Floyd's going to be okay. Gross Matos is going to be a little longer. But man, D. Winters, he was the talk of camp early. Was a little too amped in the first preseason game, I think. But if that ankle is anything, that's a big deal too.
Yeah. And, the Buccaneers cut Kalen DeLoach, who's another Florida State linebacker. So, I mean, he's, to me, a really exciting player. If they look for another player at the cut down from around the league, he could be one of the guys they look at. Okay, Aiyuk. Let's hit Aiyuk here. I mean, he wasn't at practice today. He was at practice earlier this week. What's going to happen? I don't know. John Lynch is going to meet with the media on Wednesday. I don't know what he's going to say in regards to Brandon Aiyuk, but I do want to play this because this, to me, I love the one thing I love about Steve Young is it seems like Steve Young always has the right perspective, and he always has a good perspective. And he went on. See if I can make this go back here. Let me see. But he went on KMBR and talked a little bit about how Aiyuk. Let me see if I can call this up. If Aiyuk, basically the whole thing with Aiyuk this summer, how it's just they're not getting a deal done, and he wants to be traded, and then he's like, trade me, but then they work out a trade with the Patriots. Like, wait, I don't want to be there. I don't trade me to the Patriots. I mean, God, I don't want to play for that team. So it's like I don't know exactly what is going on with him, but here it is. Here's a little bit of Steve. Let's play this, and then we can react to it. Here it is. A little Steve Young on KMBR talking a little bit about Brandon Aiyuk and his perspective on Aiyuk and his holdout. Here we go. Steve Young, the Hall of Famer.
Nick Bosa was going to set the market. Trent's going to set the market. You kind of get it in a way. It's a bummer. Like, I wish that Trent would have done this earlier, or the 49ers, and I get all that. But Brandon, because of his youth and because he's not going to set the market, yet wants to set the market, says, I want to be traded. And then goes through this, I don't know how to put it, but it was like, bro, like, if you want to tear up the contract and do something big, then you might want to pick, you might want to go the 5th year and go prove it out, like, to make sure that everybody's on board with you setting the market. Or if you're going to ask to be traded, then when they make a trade that works for them, you got to say you're up for it. You don't say, oh, no, that doesn't work for me. Because then it was like, well, what do you want? And so there's been the back and forth that's been very, I don't know. They can get it mended. It's not like they're like broken relationships, but it's stretched. It's strained. And I think at the end of the day, Brandon's now sitting in front of a contract that's probably 49ers have stretched as much as they possibly can. They don't want to set the market. They don't want to do it. They don't think it's the time.
So there you go. A little Steve Young there kind of summarizing the, the Brandon Aiyuk story and this whole thing this summer. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. I think Mayoko said it best when he said, maybe Brandon asked for a trade and hadn't really thought it all the way through. John, you guys talk about this a lot, I'm sure, on the radio. Where are you with Aiyuk and this holdout? What do you think the end game is? Is he going to be here? Is he going to be somewhere else? Do you believe? Are the Commanders going to roll in the 11th hour and figure out a way to get this done? I want to say that he's going to be a Niner, but I get the sense that this thing may be personal, and it may not have to do with dollars and cents as much as personalities and who likes who and gets along with who. I don't know what to believe at this point. What do you know about this?
I think there's a couple of things I can give perspective on, but both sides made a mistake. The 49ers are smart enough. They have they have a certain way they do business. And so they think going into camp, they got Kittle done late. They got Warner done late. They got Debo done late. They got all these deals done into July, early August. Bosa's deal got done on September 6th. So that's their deal. Like, we're going to push it. Then when it's up against the deadline, the absolute deadline, which we're way past because it's now less than 2 weeks away. It's 2 weeks from tonight that the Monday Night Football game is. So whether Aiyuk or Williams comes in, they're going to be compromised. So the 49ers waited too long. The wide receiver market exploded. And early in this process, they could have had a 3-year deal like they had with Debo or DK got from Seattle or Terry McLaurin got from Washington. They could have got a 3-year deal done if they would have done it fast, but they didn't want to. So then everybody starts getting paid. And we all know this. The Amon-Ra St. Brown deal was the one that changed everything. He was close. He was picking out a suit. They had a deal done in the $26 million range. And then all of a sudden, Amon-Ra St. Brown gets 30 and Aiyuk says, I want 30. Well, I can tell you this, that when Mike Silver said 26 million, that was accurate. The 49ers since then, from what I've heard, have jumped up to 28. And then recently the 49ers even got close to 30. So the number is there. What they're fighting about now is how big's the check. So we saw CeeDee Lamb go today, 4 for 136. He gets 34 a year, but it's not the 34 a year. And it's getting really confusing. What is guaranteed? What is practically guaranteed? It's all this stuff.
Fully guaranteed versus partial guarantees.
I heard the number 100 million, but I know this, that CeeDee Lamb is getting a check, one of those Happy Gilmore checks for $38 million. I know he is getting that. So that's where the holdup is. If I show up to 49, how big is the check you're writing me? That's where they are right now. The 49ers are frustrated in this way. And it's like Steve said, they're fine. I was on the field staring at Brandon Aiyuk in Las Vegas on Friday night, and he's talking to fans. He's all happy. He's going like a roller coaster ride through this whole thing, which is, and Debo tried to tell him this, and Kittle tried to you can't do that because you're going to be mad and you're going to be happy. You're going to be mad. You're going to be happy. And we've seen that through the whole process, and that's a maturity thing. But where the 49ers are upset is they feel like they get to a point and they agree on something, then they move the cheese. Okay, we'll accept this. Oh, Amon-Ra got a deal. Hang on. Oh, we'll accept this. Hold on. Let's wait until CD gets his deal. Well, there's nobody left standing, dude. Jamar Chase isn't getting a new deal because the Bengals are incredibly cheap, and he's got 2 more years left on his deal. All these deals that are being done for receivers, they had 1 year left on their deal, or they were a free agent in like Mike Evans' case. The Bengals are not doing a new deal for Jamar Chase with 2 years left on his deal. So all the receiver deals are done. So this shouldn't be that hard. You're not Justin Jefferson. You're not CeeDee Lamb, who caught like 130-something balls last year. You're not CeeDee. You're not Jamar, and you're not Jefferson. You're somewhere below that. Should you get paid in the Amon-Ra St. Brown realm neighborhood? Yeah, you should. That's exactly right. There's no more information. I don't know what the holdup is. There's no more information for the Niners. There's no more information for Aiyuk. And as Steve was kind of alluding to there, do you want to play and win or not? You clearly don't want to go to New England. You could have got the money. You don't want to go to Cleveland. Pittsburgh's not giving the Niners what they need. Dude, we are at the deadline. And the frustration here is make a decision. The Niners have made their best offer. From what I understand, it's a good one. And it's in the neighborhood he should be in. And so the Niners are sitting there going, look, if you want us to put dummy years so you can make 30, okay. But they're offering him a big check, and that's where they are right now is how big's the check? And Aiyuk and his side feel like he should be in that upper echelon of those 3. And I love Brandon Aiyuk, and I know this is not easy, I'm sure, for both sides. You're not Justin Jefferson. You're not CeeDee Lamb, and you're not Jamar Chase. So where we put you is right, and that's where they're sitting, and that's where I don't think there's going to be a trade, just like everybody. I don't think there's going to be a trade, but I do know that the 49ers are frustrated. And so could at the last minute, here's the problem, though. Throw Washington back in this. They're not giving it Terry McLaurin because that doesn't get them anywhere. The Niners never wanted Jahan Dotson. He's too small. He's not going to be able to fill that role. So there's not really a fit there, and the word is Adam Peters doesn't want to give him a first-round pick. So they don't – a second and a third for Aiyuk after all this is not getting it done.
Right. Well, and draft picks are going to be a lose. That's a losing situation. You're gonna look Trent Williams in the eye and say, "Hey, we got 2025 draft picks, big boy." He doesn't care about 20.
Well, here's the other thing too, Krug. And again, you know this, and this part of all these things, these insiders is all accurate. When they let Brandon Aiyuk go out and seek a trade, and this is especially applies to Pittsburgh, and they said, "Okay, we'll give you a 2 and a 3. We can't give you anybody off our roster." It's not that good of a roster anyway. I don't know what Pittsburgh's thinking, but okay, we take the second and the third, we shop it around. Nobody wants to give him anything that would be worth Aiyuk. So the second and the third is all fine and dandy. They don't want to wait till next year's draft because they want to win a Super Bowl now. So they shopped those picks around the league and said, what do you give us for this? And the returns weren't great. So the 49ers don't owe him anything. He's not going to play on the 14, which, by the way, Brandon Aiyuk's made $12 million in his career. The leverage to me squarely is with the 49ers. Is Brandon Aiyuk going to miss? So if let's say Brandon Aiyuk starts missing games, and this is why these deals with Trent and Aiyuk are going to get done. Trent could lose up to, he's already lost a few $1 million, but then for every game check you miss, it's 1/17 of your salary. For Trent Williams, that's like $1.8 million per week. And for Brandon Aiyuk, who's made $12 million in his career so far, which is fine, but he'd get paid $14 million if he played on that last year. That's about $800,000 a week that he's losing that you're not getting back. So these deals, I think, are going to get done just because the absolute deadline is not today and it's not next week. It's before the Jets game, and that's when Bosa came in, when he absolutely positively was going to start losing game checks. He came in. So these deals will get done. But then, Krug, the question becomes, can Aiyuk play against the Jets? Can he be effective at all? Can Trent Williams be effective, or is it going to be Jalen Moore? So all of a sudden, and I think you need Trent Williams way more than you need Brandon Aiyuk to win game one against the Jets. But now the Niners are sitting there going, great, we're paying you, but you're not going to be effective. And in Aiyuk's case, you're going to have a soft tissue injury now because Brandon Aiyuk hasn't played since they walked off the field in Las Vegas in February. How good can he
Oh,
be
I know.
in 2 weeks?
What are
from
the
tonight?
odds that? Yeah, he's the odds are high that he's probably going to go down with some soft tissue injury. So it's frustrating. But I mean, obviously, all you think through all the different options, and even if that you could find a trade for him, I mean, you're not going to get fair value, and you're not going to get value this year, and you're inside your Super Bowl window this year, and it's like, hey, just
they've shopped those picks. They that's the other thing that
what are you going to get? I mean, Cortland Sutton, that doesn't excite me.
Well, and Krug, here's the thing too. For all the value he thinks he provides for a team, and this is not bashing Brandon Aiyuk, he's earned this deal. And the market where the 49ers screwed up, like I said, is they didn't read the market. And they should have got this deal done earlier. So he's got leverage and all those kind of things. But the thing I would tell his agent, because you're not going to tell him this because it would cause a huge rift, is, hey man, if your guy was that valuable, we would have gotten a first-round pick. We'd have got multiple first-round picks. We'd have got offered a second, a third, and a player. We're not getting those offers. And the reason why, and nobody talks about this, the reason why is wide receiver is not quarterback. Next year, there's going to be 10 more of them that are good. And there was a ton of them. There was 3 in the top 10 that are really good this year. And the Niners, if they could have got up there, would have gotten one of them. And said, to hell with Brandon Aiyuk. A team doesn't want to go out and give $30 million to a player and give up compensation when they know damn well that if they pick in the top 15 next year, they're going to get a Brandon Aiyuk or better. The only reason New England did it is because New England is so lacking in talent that they're terrible and they have a rookie quarterback. And they're looking at what Chicago did with Caleb Williams. Damn, they went out and got a couple of receivers and they drafted one and they got Keenan Allen and they already got more there and they got a running back in Swift. Damn, that's what Carolina, same thing. Carolina's going, damn, we should have done that with Bryce Young. So what now New England is doing, because you want to, this better than anybody, you want to draft, develop, and re-sign. Well, the teams in the bottom of the league, they draft, they don't develop and re-sign. So what do? They have to overpay like the Niners did a few years ago for a while. So New England's like, we'll give him 32. We don't have any receivers and we have a rookie quarterback. But he doesn't want to go to a garbage team like that. So there is no perfect deal. And what I would tell Brandon Aiyuk's people is, hey, man, if he was as good as you're making him out to be, like Justin Jefferson would get Minnesota a minimum of 2 first-round picks. CeeDee Lamb would get Dallas 2 first-round picks. The offers for Brandon Aiyuk are exactly what the 49ers want to pay him, which is we'll give you top 10 money, but you're not top 3 money. So stop doing that. Because if we could get that for you, if we could get Justin Jefferson, which is 2 first-round picks and maybe a third and maybe a player, that's what I would give up for Justin Jefferson. But you're not him. So the best we've gotten for you is a 2 and a 3. That's not $35 million a year and an $80 million check like Jefferson got. So get that out of your head. Here's the neighborhood you're going to live in, and it's a damn good neighborhood, but you're not a top 3 wide receiver, and we've offered you nearly $30 million per year, and I don't know the size of the check, but it's commensurate with what these other top guys have gotten. 40 million, 35 million, whatever it is, they'll come to the table with that check. I just think he's got an inflated value of what he's worth.
When he sat down on the Pivot podcast and it came out in that podcast that he was making a documentary about this, I said, uh-oh. Documentary sounds like long drawn out.
If you're going to sign the thing early, then there's 2 episodes. I mean, he wants
no documentary. Yeah, there's no documentary. I got one last question for you before we jet. But
on Aiyuk, and then I mean, this whole process, what is your thought of it? Because to me, both sides are to blame. But to me, I think the 49ers have made a fair offer. They waited too long to do it. I'll blame them for that. But at this point, they've made a fair offer, and they're frustrated because Brandon Aiyuk's side keeps moving the cheese. And I always thought it was going to get done, and I still do think it's going to get done, and I don't think he's going to get traded. But nothing would surprise me at this point.
Yeah, I think Aiyuk has always wanted to be a Niner. I think his mom or grandma is a Niner fan. I think that carries a lot of weight with him. He's got pictures of himself as a little kid in Niner jerseys. I think, the biggest bag to play on the worst team, Patriots, don't want to do that. A bigger bag to play in Cleveland, don't want to play in Cleveland. A bigger bag to play in Pittsburgh, that sounds good. But then, man, watching Justin Fields and their quarterbacks and their offense this summer, it's like, dude, they're
not
terrible.
Beat that division with Cincinnati and Baltimore.
Yeah, they're bad. I mean, you want to go there, you're putting your career in your own hands there. And then it's just all these different options of where he can go. Washington makes a lot of sense, but I don't know if it makes a lot of sense for Aiyuk. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense for Washington. I don't know. At the end of the day, I side with Aiyuk to some degree because I think there are factors at play here between the pace that the Niners play, all the weapons that they have at their disposal, how often they run the ball as opposed to pass the ball. Those factors have nothing to do with Aiyuk. He didn't have anything to do with those factors. They all suppress his numbers. And so he's a great blocker in the run game. He's not a diva. He doesn't hold court at his locker every day that he doesn't get the ball. And I just think on a running football team, this guy's your dream guy. And don't sit there and hold his football card against him. When you play the 28th slowest pace, you run the ball more than anybody in pro football, and you've got a million weapons. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with why his numbers aren't more premier. In reality, he's probably one of the most efficient wide receivers and deep threats in the entire league. So I would have paid him, but I understand my feeling with the Niners is that Parag and John and Kyle all report to Jed, and they have their report cards are tied to different things. I think Parag is tied to good contracts and favorable deals. I think, John's about trades and favorable trades and draft choices. And I think Kyle's about W's. And sometimes I feel like they're a little too in their own world. And you know what? You don't have to win every negotiation. And I personally would love to see them get this done. I really don't want to see him trade him for draft picks. I really don't want to see him in Pittsburgh for some backup offensive guard or something like that. I mean, at the same time, I kind of feel like, he should also appreciate where he's at and the team that he's on. I mean, don't you think that the fact that you're on a team with all these weapons means that your longevity in pro football is going to be greater because the ball is going to get spread around to these other guys? Doesn't that have some value? I mean, I think he's forgetting that.
Well, and I think too, and then we can move on from this, but a lot what Steve was saying is, and he's not saying, hey man, you're lucky to be playing for the 49ers, but it's a great organization. He's a West Coast kid. He clearly doesn't want to go freeze his ass off in one of those other cities. He's got a great quarterback situation and a great connection with Brock Purdy, and they can do a lot of great things together. It's just the 49ers have X amount. The one thing, again, that everybody looks at, we got to have him. We got to have him. You're going to start losing guys. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And from the beginning, I thought to myself, is the NFL really valuing this position at this level? Because I know that, look, I like Brandon Aiyuk, but the other debate is Aiyuk or Ward, Aiyuk or Debo. Demo. I didn't say Debo. I said Demo.
And Banks.
Exactly. Yeah. You're going to lose guys. So for every dollar you're paying Aiyuk, and I think they should pay him. And they're in a Super Bowl window. Worry about those things later. Brock's going to get done, all those kind of things. But man, you're going to start losing guys. I mean, that's just the reality when you start paying a quarterback. You are going to lose guys. So it's great to get Aiyuk, and we'll worry about next year. But you're going to lose one of these corners. And I think it's probably going to be Ward, and I think they're going to try to keep Demo because he's a little bit younger. But that's why, seeing Renardo Green, and this goes back to the draft picks, Renardo Green having success, Darrell Luter Jr. making plays, because one of those guys is going to have to be a starter. And overall, this all ties to the cap, getting cheap labor that's good labor, which they've done a tremendous job under John and Kyle. And we don't know what's going to happen with Pearsall, but Renardo Green, Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa, Isaac Guerrero, Jacob Cowing. I mean, these guys have shown this preseason that they can play. Now, whether they can play in the regular season, that's the huge thing. But if these guys can, and Luter can play, and all these different guys, all of a sudden you can make these decisions and you can lose guys because your front office is getting in cheap, effective labor. And that's where these drafts are becoming more important than ever, because then you can go, okay, we can't keep Ward and Demo, but if we keep one, another guy can step up. That's a massive thing for these guys, because if they're bombing picks, and they got lucky with Trey Lance, but when they start, if they start going downhill, that Trey Lance thing is going to rear its ugly head again, because to me, maybe other than Ryan Leaf, Trey Lance is the worst quarterback draft pick of all time. I mean, dude, what he did against Dallas, those 5 interceptions, what he does, it's like playing Madden and you predetermine your throw. Tony Jefferson got 3 interceptions in that game. He's a veteran that's been around 12 years. Tony Jefferson baited him into every one of those throws, and he just went, this guy's so stupid, he'll never look at the second read. He never did. He just kind of hid and picked it, hid and picked it, and he was laughing. Like this, Trey Lance, And here's the thing. He has nowhere to get better. He's going to be third string on Dallas. He's going to sit behind Cooper Rush and Dak. Dak's going to get his contract. They really thought that might put some pressure on. Oh, look, Dak, we got this guy. He threw 5 preseason interceptions, and all of them were ridiculous.
All I got to say about that, and I love everybody who talks Niners, and I love the entire community. And I'm not going to bag on people because I've been wrong before as well, God knows. But how many people, I mean, all I got to say is if you're a Niner fan and you can have your choice of people to listen to talk about the 49ers, are you going to remember the people that told you that Trey Lance was better than Brock Purdy? One guy is an MVP candidate and the other guy just threw 5 picks in a preseason game.
And they were
just
bad. I mean,
all I would say
really
is don't forget who told you that Trey Lance was great. Now, I'm a believer that Trey Lance can still develop because I really believe that if you want it bad enough, you can get there. But I mean, it's
can't read deep.
It's a ways away at this point.
If you could put Brock's brain in Lance, you'd have the perfect quarterback because the kid's athletic. We saw the touchdown run. But he can't read anything. And what he does is he predetermines and stares down a throw. It's laughable. And I'm not ripping on the kid. What I'm saying is that it's going to rear its ugly head. All is well now because Brock has been so great. But what I'm saying is draft picks are cheap. And so those draft picks that you gave away, 2 first-round picks, they get one. Papa wants to say it's 3. It's net 2. And those 2 first-round picks right now would be in the prime of their career going into their 3rd year. And they would be helping you mitigate all this money that you're throwing around. Those would be 2 first-round picks still making cheap money, assuming that you'd hit on them, which isn't always a safe assumption with John and Kyle. They're better in the mid-rounds. But those, at some point here in the near future when they get out of this window, because I remember going through this in Detroit when they took Darko Milicic over Carmelo and over Dwayne Wade, and nobody bitched at the time because the Pistons won a championship, right? And then when they could have used Carmelo or something when they got older, everyone went, damn, that pick they blew. Well, they didn't say that for 5 years. Well, the same thing's going to happen because you had 2 first-round picks that would be on this roster right now, but they decided to roll a massive pair of dice. I mean, seriously, it's like drunk blindfolded in Vegas. The guy never played. We've all been through it, so we don't need to go through it again. But I just got flashbacked on it because I was coming back from Vegas, and I heard all about it, so I flipped the game on my iPad and watched it in the
train wreck. Absolute train wreck.
Laughing out loud, like, how could someone be this bad? And I feel bad for Trey because he didn't get the opportunity to play enough, and he doesn't have the opportunity to get better because there's no minor leagues in football. So I don't know how he's going to get better at the thing he needs to get better at. It's game speed processing. That's what he needs to get better at, and he has no ability to do that because now he's the 3rd string quarterback, and he's not going to get any reps. So how does he get better at the thing he's worst at, which is game speed processing, which Brock is so good at?
Yeah, I mean,
you don't.
The NFL, you have to be able to throw anticipatory throws. You have to be able to lead guys into the open windows. You don't have guys just sitting wide open in open windows waiting for the ball. And if you do, they are open for a second, and you don't have you got to throw that ball with anticipation. And Lance, has struggled with that. And
sorry, I didn't mean to get off onto a tangent there.
No, not at all. Mitchell and Ness says Larry with the low blow, then says I like Lance. Who else but Larry? I like Lance. I do like Lance. I mean, he
stating the obvious here.
Today, Lance is a bust. I believe eventually he'll come out of it and be a decent NFL quarterback. I really do believe he'll get there, but it looks terrible right now. And it was clearly a bust, and he just doesn't. If I was trying to sum it up in one sentence, I would just say Trey is a great kid who's smart and he's athletic, but his feel is just nowhere there. He's just so far away. There's so many things that Brock Purdy does just by natural feel that this guy never will do. And it's obvious.
He played in a pro style offense in high school. Like it's different. Trey Lance up in Minnesota because of all the weather and stuff was playing 7-on-7 football, played really a year at North Dakota State and 1 game because of the pandemic. And honestly, the Niners aren't going to get ripped on this because Brock is so good. But in a few years, when they've got to let some guys go, and all of a sudden it was like, hey man, those 2 first-round picks would have come in handy. That's going to happen 2 or 3 years from right now because they're going to go, what could they have done with those picks? That's what's going to happen because it was just, and for an organization, we really never have this conversation because Brock saved them. But for an organization this good, to decide, you know what, Jimmy's not good enough, he's getting hurt, whatever, and then to take a massive roll of the dice on this guy when you're in a Super Bowl window, because what you were trying to do was get a guy like Brock Purdy who you could plug in and keep the train rolling. Trey Lance needed 3 or 4 years. And I would have loved to have seen it. You know, he plays against the Bears, he gets hurt in that second game of the season. I would have loved to have seen it, but now that he's in Dallas and he was all excited last year to go there, he's a third string quarterback and he has no ability to get better because he needs to play to get better. And I feel bad. So anyway, I didn't mean to go on a tangent of his. I was just saying, because from the picks, and the Niners look like they have some really good picks this year. We'll see what happens with Pearsall, that these picks are absolutely critical to extend this window that all these so-called national experts are trying to close on the 49ers. That was my original point.
One last thought, and I got one last question for John before we go. But first, let me just throw one last mention for our sponsor. This live stream is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krueger Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. I'm loving using Better. Everyone who signs up with the code Niners inside and places a contest or enters a contest is automatically entered to win a Brock Purdy jersey in your size. That's right. We'll find out what size you are and order it for you. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners, Niners, to get the first deposit match up to $250 and to enter into the contest. Thanks to Better for sponsoring the Krueger Show. We appreciate them greatly. All right, last question of the night, and it comes from the chat. Coach Scrapper says, Johnny and Larry, pick one long shot who will make the team. One long shot, according to Coach Scrapper, JC444. Well, thank you, Coach. That is difficult. The Niners did, by the way, cut 5 players today. Matt Breida, Keyshawn Vaughn, Presley Harvin III, who did a great job punting, Lewis Kidd, and John Trey Kirkland all were cut today. Breida is probably the most surprising. I guess he could probably find his way back to the practice squad, but probably won't. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe, there's Cody Schrader and there's other guys. What do you think, John?
Man, that's a tough one because I don't know if there's a long shot here. I was looking at one guy. One position we didn't mention, and I really have no idea what's going to happen here, is tight end. Yeah. Because for years they've been trying to get a guy because Kittle plays so hard, and he's going to get hurt. So they're looking for that combination guy. And I will say, and he had another good game against the Raiders, but I don't know if he's going to make the team. He was so bad last year, they had to redshirt him. There was no injury. They just needed to redshirt him. And that's Cam Latu. He's had a really nice preseason after last year dropping 1 million balls. And again, you don't want to cut a third-round pick from 23. That's a valuable pick. But I don't know if he makes his club because Saubert's a veteran. They're going to go with him. Why did they bring back Logan Thomas? Like, they cut him and then they brought him back. So was Logan Thomas there? Braylon Willis has been hot and cold. Latu has had a really good preseason, but I don't know if he's going to make it. They usually carry like 4, right? And then they'll probably put one on the practice squad. They love to have tight ends, but damn, Krug, why is it so hard for them to find a competent backup to George Kittle? They've tried it. They did it 1 year when they got the dude who was always hurt from Washington. I'm losing his name right now.
Jordan Reed. Yeah, Jordan Reed.
They had him for like a minute, but then he got hurt like he always does. And then he retired because of, I think, concussions or some injuries. But maybe I'd say Cam Latu just because he's a third-round pick in 23. I don't know if anybody would pick him up if they put him on waivers, so they might waive him and bring him back. I know they're going to bring him back. He had a couple nice catches against the Raiders. He looks a lot better, and I do know that they like his blocking ability, so he might be the closest thing long-term that they have to a guy who can block and catch, but he's still struggling to catch the ball. And speaking of guys that you scratch your head on, Latu was a third-round pick.
I know. Could have had Dawan Jones. Could have had a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kittle obviously is your number one. He's your star. Saubert is a really strong inline blocker, and he made a one-handed catch today at practice. I think he's locked up that number 2 Charlie Warner blocking tight end spot. So now the third tight end, if there's going to be a third tight end or a fourth tight end, probably going to be receivers. Braden Willis has shown a lot as a receiver, but he cannot block even. His blocking is so bad that he's like a wide receiver. Yeah, he's just getting ragdolled. I mean, he's getting thrown around. I would say Juwan Jennings has greater play strength than Braden Willis, based on what I've seen. Then there's Latu, who's 6'5", close to 250, easily the best athlete of all these guys. I mean, maybe even including Kittle. I mean, he is a really good athlete. He's 6'5", close to 250, very smooth. But there's an overall lack of urgency to everything that Cam does.
That's a great way to put it.
And it just doesn't seem it's like, I don't know if he just doesn't take it that seriously, if he's kind of young. I don't know. Then there's Logan Thomas. I think his body has kind of betrayed him. I don't like him very much at all. Then the kid who's had a great camp is Tongas, the Cal kid, who's in great shape. They signed him last year. They put him on the practice squad. They brought him back. He's had an awesome camp. But he's just another underpowered guy. I mean, he's kind of like Dwelly. He's 6'4", 240, and it's just going to get obliterated by defensive ends. They're just going to throw him away. But he has had some amazing days catching the football. And then there's the weirdest guy on this team, and that's Mason Pline. Yeah. And his agent called us yesterday and was asking us, kind of desperate, "Hey, man, do you have any practice film of Mason that you can send us?" And I knew exactly why he wanted it, because the Niners have pickle jarred Pline. And I'm of the belief, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to lose this guy, but I'm of the belief that he hasn't played not because they don't like him. I'm of the belief that he hasn't played because they love him. I think they know that he's a basketball player. He's got 10-inch hands. The tight end coach, Brian Fleury, told me he's incredibly smart. He's a mechanical engineering major. He says he improves dramatically every day. I haven't seen him drop a single ball in camp. He's 6'8". He's got good receiving skills, pretty good upper body strength. I just think he needs a year of development to transition from basketball to football. I think they know that. I think I don't know how this is going to go, John, but I think there's a chance because of all the corners they have and all the quarterbacks and all the depth they have at other spots, that the Niners might go Kittle and Sauerbert, cut Willis, cut Latu, cut Thomas, cut Tongas, cut Pline, put Pline on the practice squad, and maybe use Garendo or JJ as their flexed out tight end, and save a roster spot. I know that sounds crazy, but I think JJ flexed out or Garendo flexed out is probably a better option and a better use of the roster spot than going with Tonjas.
I have a feeling they're going to keep Latu as the third tight end only because a third rounder out there probably going to get snapped up. But I agree with you. I think Willis and Pline will both be on the practice squad because they love their tight ends, and they've got to find a way. And so I guess Latu, I don't know if that would answer his question, one long shot, because he looked so bad last year. But they've got to find a way to play Kittle less because he's 30 years old, and I know that's weird to say, but he only knows one way to play, and it's hard. I mean, even in that preseason game against the Raiders, he was playing like it was a regular season game. He just can't help it. And they for years, you know this, they're trying to find somebody. I mean, they drafted 2 tight ends last year. They bring in 2 or 3 tight ends as free agents every year. Pline, like I said, is a basketball player. They're going that route that like a lot of teams have. I mean, right now, what is that? 3, 5, they have 7 tight ends on the team. I mean, they're trying everywhere. They're uncovering every rock, but man, it just hasn't happened. No matter what they do. So
the guy that I would say for to answer this question to say, give me somebody who, is under the radar that
your specialty, man. You know this.
Yeah. I mean, the one guy who, and I'm looking it up here. Here it is. Do you ever follow Coach? Have you ever have you heard of Coach Yak?
Yeah, sure.
So Coach Yak is a good guy. He does some good stuff on Twitter. He put up the other day Drake Nugent numbers this preseason. 56 pass blocking opportunities for Nugent, 0 quarterback hits allowed, 0 sacks allowed, only 1 pressure allowed, 99.1 pass blocking efficiency. I think they badly want to give that job to Nick Sakel because I think as Brock Purdy's buddy and he's 6'6", 310. He went to Fordham. He's tough. He's smart. He can play guard. He can play center. But I think Nugent, and I think the quiet, great development of the summer is that Pooney, Nugent, and Kingston are all players. And I like what I've seen out of Drake Nugent. I liked him at Stanford. He was a team captain at Stanford. He transferred to Michigan his final year. He was all Big Ten first team. He led the way for the best rushing attack in all of college football. They won the national championship. Center play is really underrated. Sometimes shorter guys can play. That guy the Ravens have, Linderbaum, I think is roughly the exact same size as Drake Nugent, one of the best centers in pro football. Stepnoski on the Dynasty Cowboys was 268 pounds or whatever. This guy's, 290. I know they want to go with Zakelj, and I know Nugent's a little short, but he's broad. I kind of like Nugent as a I don't know that he gets picked off waivers if they try to put him on the practice squad, so they could probably put him on the practice squad and have Zakelj and Nugent. But I love what I've seen out of Nugent, and I've seen him in drills. I've talked to some of the D linemen. When this guy two-hand shivers you, man, you feel it. This guy has tremendous play strength, really smart. I think that might be a really underrated player that they kind of stumbled into.
Plus, I think long term that you start looking at this team, and man, I hope Pooney's for real, and I hope Trent comes back, because if not, they're gonna get eaten up by the Jets up front, and they could lose that game. But Trent Williams is Trent. Banks, they got to re-sign long term. Pooney looks like he's a player, and whether people are like it or not, they like Colt McKivitz kind of fighting style at the right tackle spot. But long term, Jake Brundle is a below average center. So whether it's Zakelj or Ben Barch or Drake Nugent or somebody, there's an opportunity there to come forth as a center for the 49ers, because Brundle's a nice guy. I like him, and he's smart and all those kind of things. But there's a reason why he didn't start till he was 30 years old. I mean, he was kind of a journeyman type. They need to upgrade at that position at the pivot point of the offensive line, because if Pooney is what he is and Trent can hang on for a couple of years, and Banks is more than serviceable at right guard. So now you got two guards you like, you get a left tackle for now that you like. They got to upgrade in the middle. There were too many times last year for the 49ers for a team who wants to punch you in the face. You got to convert the short, the third and shorts, and too much penetration in the middle. And when you have Brock Purdy at, 6 foot plus and he's stepping up into the pocket, you can't have penetration in the middle with Brock. It's a really important position always, but especially for the 49ers.
That's going to do it for us. I'd like to thank everybody. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Better for being the proud sponsors of the Krueger Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. As far as the rest of the week, tomorrow the players have the day off because tomorrow is Cutdown Day. So we'll do a bunch of videos tomorrow. Also tomorrow morning, catch me at 8:50 with Murph and Marcus tomorrow morning on the KNBR Morning Show. Tomorrow night, Raj will be in the house from RSF 49ers, and we'll talk a little bit with Raj. And then Wednesday, we're back down at practice. Niners practice at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. We'll talk to Sorensen on Thursday. Dieter's going to stop by on Thursday night. And then, of course, Monday, Labor Day, September 2nd, day one of Niners Nightly on KNBR from 6 to 7 p.m. Check me out there. We'll talk Niners. We'll be at Santa Clara every day, and we'll just bring interviews from the locker room and all kinds of Niner content to the radio airways from 6 to 7 starting on Labor Day. So check that show out. Johnny, what do you got cooking tomorrow with Greg? I know you guys I'll be in the car. I catch you guys when I'm on the road, when I'm driving down. What do you got cooking?
You know what's fun for tomorrow's show that I do know that we're going to have one guy. Mike Sando does those QB tiers. Mike Sando is an awesome writer. He's with the Athletic.
Love Mike Sando.
Does a great job covering the league and does one of those, recap columns after every week. So he moved up Brock Purdy. And again, these are not his rankings. He does all this research, talks to people around the league, GMs, coaches, offensive coordinators, and he compiles a list of quarterback tiers. And so last year we all complained because I think Brock was in like tier 4, and his explanation was, look, first of all, I don't make these. These are the facts that he gets from people. But it was most people saying, well, we don't know enough about Brock, so let's see him do it again. Well, he did. And he was the quarterback who moved up the most, 13 spots.
Wow.
And so I won't say what tier he is in now, but we're going to talk to Sando about his quarterback tiers tomorrow. And Brock has moved up because, of course, Greg was, lambasting the guy. What are you doing? Why do you have Myers? So we'll have him tomorrow to explain. But I know he's moved up 13 spots in the Mike Sando quarterback tiers.
Super Bowl week, I'm in Radio Row and just doing a video in Radio Row. Mike Sando walks up. Then JT the Brick walks up. So now it's like, then Sam Batesh, who's like an old Fox radio exec guy we used to work with at KNBR, walks up. And then out of nowhere, John, Wayne freaking Newton walked into our video, and it's up on the Krug show. So if you go look at our Super Bowl week videos, it's me talking to Mike Sando about, football and the game. And then all of a sudden Wayne Newton walks in and let's just say this, Wayne Newton's had some work done. Wayne Newton's had some extensive work done.
Yeah.
Joan Rivers just called and said, hey, I got nothing on Wayne Newton. But anyway,
bro, you've done too much.
Wayne Newton, Mr. Vegas, showed up in the video.
Wow.
It was epic, and people were like, "Is that what?" We put it out on YouTube, and all the comments are like, "At 17 minutes, Krug, was that Wayne Newton?" Yes, that was Wayne Newton. Everybody,
wild last year. I have news for you. Although it was weird to go back to the scene of the crime for that preseason game on Friday night, it was not anything like the Super Bowl. Like Greg was freaking out about it. Oh, I got to go back there. And I know Brock mentioned it. Was that today or yesterday or whatever it was? Going back there, he didn't really like it. And same locker room and stuff. But believe me, I wasn't sitting in there going, oh man, because they didn't even have the same field. It was like kind of half brown, and it was just
right
the same.
I'll say this for the I would love to see the 49ers go to the Super Bowl this year and have it be a rematch of Niners Ravens, and we could all go back to New Orleans.
That was
remember
fun.
How great the New Orleans parties were that week and in the Big Easy.
New Orleans is by far the best place for the Super Bowl because it's Vegas was pretty good last year.
Vegas is great,
but
Vegas, New Orleans is more of a party.
Definitely. But the thing that's so weird about Vegas and New Orleans as convention cities, but just in this case, the Super Bowl, you could be on one end of the city and you wouldn't even know the Super Bowl is going on because Vegas and New Orleans are small areas, but they're so good at sucking up the party. So you could have a bunch of parties, and then like Vegas last year, you'd go to the other end of the strip, you wouldn't even know the Super Bowl is going on. And New Orleans is the same way. You go now, if you're on Bourbon Street, of course, you know the Super Bowl's going on. You go over to Frenchman, like one over, you're at some speakeasy, smoking a cigar.
Right.
You know what's going on. But the great thing about New Orleans, you can literally just walk all around there, and you don't have to get in a car. You don't have to do all this kind of stuff. Then you kind of bus over to the stadium. But these other places like San Francisco, LA, Miami, like all these, New York, I mean, half the time you're spending is going place to another place on this media bus somewhere because it's so spread out everywhere, and people hate that. But San Diego's the same way, even though we don't have it anymore. San Diego is great that way. But New Orleans and Vegas, I think. But New Orleans, you don't have the cheese factor that you have in Vegas and all that kind of stuff. But New Orleans, I think, is the best. And I remember you and I, and we had a whole
Townie. Man.
We
went into the Townie and I, we went into the piano bar at Pat O'Brien's. It's like 3:30 in the morning, which means we were probably still going to be out for another 2 or 3 hours. My radio shift was 9 to noon Pacific at that time. So in Central Time Zone, my radio shift was 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. That is absolutely the perfect time to be working, in New Orleans, right? Because nothing goes on between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m.
I remember so many nights we were walking back to the hotel, and the sun was coming up, and you're just like, oh my God. I mean, it's just, so when you get middays, because you and I were on separate stations back then, and I did the middays there too. And so I think my show might have been starting to show at noon.
Townie dragged me to the 95.7 The Game dinner.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, it was amazing.
Remember I walked into the 95.7. It's
awesome.
Like the entire radio station gave me this look like, what the hell's Krueger doing here?
Well, Tom could have done it too, but just real quick, because I know we got to jump. But Rick Bucher back in the day was buying dinner because he would never go out with us. So we were all.
Dude, he covered it. He threw down his credit card. So Bucher.
Everyone was talking trash about Bucher, and then all of a sudden we're all drinking and having a great time. Bucher throws down the credit card, and we're like, "We love you," but we were also saying, "Dude, I would have ordered the real expensive stuff had I know you're doing that." But I mean, we're talking about like a 15-person dinner. I mean, it was in the thousands.
Oh, it was incredible. And then Greg got us all into that club, whatever it was, down in the quarter. And what a time, man. What a time. I mean, seriously. Radnich used to have that Larry drank too much and passed out in a bush. And it's like, for that week, that was true. That was accurate. Larry did drink too much and pass out in a bush.
The neat thing, and this happened over the weekend, you could be doing whatever you want. You don't even have to look at your watch. In places like New Orleans and Vegas, you can get great drink anytime. Because I left the stadium on Friday night. I think we got done at about midnight, And it was like there was no rush to anything because you can just walk up and get food anywhere. I mean, I love those cities, but New Orleans, it was probably of the 10 days we were there, which is far too long. Seriously, probably 6, we saw the sun come up.
Unbelievable. By the way, one of the fans of my YouTube show, the great Big Mo Easy, lives in Vegas, and he kept saying to me, "Hey man, the Super Bowl's in Vegas. If the Niners go to the Super Bowl, you and Kev got to come out. I'll take you guys out for dinner. I'm a big shot here in Vegas." And he's like, "I got a business. I'm making all kinds of cash, and I'll do it up right. We'll go out. I'm taking you guys out." Okay, so we never met him before, but we said, okay, we'll call him. So we get to Vegas. He's like, "We're going out to dinner." We go, "Where are we going?" He takes us to the Golden Steer Steakhouse, which is like, you can't get a reservation ever. And it was like, it was the most amazing steakhouse, most amazing meal. And like I told people the rest of the week, I'm like, "Yeah, we went to the Golden Steer." "You went to the Golden Steer? How'd you get the reservation?" I'm like, Big Mo, Big Mo Easy for my YouTube show got us in. I mean, it was amazing.
So awesome.
Absolutely amazing. And Kev and I are sitting there dining with Big Mo, and it's just,
dude, tell him that's it. He might as well jump in the box now. It's not going to get better. I mean, that's
seriously the Golden Steer.
That
was
is incredible.
Absolutely spectacular. Johnny, great stuff, man. Good to see you. We'll check you out tomorrow. What do we know? What time, Sando, or is it still TBD?
I don't know, but we're on from 10 to 2. I don't know.
10 to 2. Everybody tune in tomorrow to KBR at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. for Johnny. 8:50 for me tomorrow with Murph.
Hit up Krueger. You're on the station like 5 times a week now, plus pre and post. Plus, when does the nightly Niners 6 to 7?
It starts on Labor Day, September 2nd.
Man, it's just awesome to have you back. I really appreciate you having me on, but it's really exciting that you're back. And the thing is, and you know this, you're going to do more and more and more, and people are going to tune in more and more, and it's just great to have you back. But you're going to be back in all facets before too long, so it's really cool.
Hey man, I appreciate you. Say hi to George. Have a great show tomorrow. Thanks to all you guys in the chat. Have a great night, everybody. For John Lund, Larry Krueger, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.